it's your turn.
Carmudgeon Show.
Yeah.
Hagerty Podcast Network.
Uh-huh.
Jason Cammisa. Derek Tam, Hyphen-Scott. Episode number 90.
Getting close to the P-episode, which we are definitely not ready to do.
There's like the most upvoted comment of every episode of the last 10 is about the P-episode coming for 100, which is hilarious because you still haven't started reading that book.
It's not that I didn't start. I
still have
like
not made any progress
in
the last, right. Maybe you need to choose a non-autobiographical, but also in German book about him.
Oh, for fuck's sake, whatever. I don't have time for this. But we do have time to talk about Concorso d'Eleganza Villa d'Este.
Yes.
Which is...
in Italy? And you attended it?
I did. I'm very jet lagged. It is, I'm going to say this in very controversial...
Controversial?
That's the way. That's the one. Terms. The best car show in the world ever.
Okay.
Even in the rain.
Even in the rain. We also spend some time shitting roundly, as opposed to squarely, on the BMW XM.
You shit on it. No, we shit on it. Yeah, I don't get it.
Me.
What else did we talk about? What we talked about is the coolest friggin' cars at that car show, mostly, I think.
EV converted BMW 2002.
EVs is a good subject. You know what? Why don't you go play the and I'm going to go rewatch your Rimac Nevera video.
Oh, yes, that's live now.
Yeah, it was really good. We'll put a link to that in the description because I'm just going to watch that. You can clap.
Oh, okay. That was a good one. Maybe the best ever. Wow, even got acknowledgement from Paolo. Jason looks deeply unamused.
This video is great. This video is really good.
Good morning, good evening, whatever the fuck time it is for you.
So last week, it was actually good next day because we were a day late posting the episode.
Oh, yes. Naughty.
Yeah, I was traveling and it was crazy. I was at Concorso d'Eleganza Villa d'Este.
Villa d'Este.
What did I say?
Esta. No matter.
All right, no, we're going to start this over again. I'm so jet lagged. Here's the thing is for all of you people who are on the East Coast who ever go to Europe, 6 hours, you're like, oh, it's 6 hours. It's a little bit of jet lag. You come from the West Coast to Europe and it's 9 and you're like, oh, it's only 50% more time zones, but 250 times the amount of jet lag.
Yeah, it is. It's a treat.
Now I know why in that episode where you were jet lagged when Sam was here, you were just like,
yeah, because I had gotten back the day before.
Yeah, this is crazy.
The night before, yeah. I'm still on the waking up at sort of 5 a.m. It's like if you're lucky, you wake up an hour later every day.
Yeah,
until you reach something normal.
Right.
So
like 9 a.m.
You'll soon be there.
I will soon be there, but until then, I'm happy to use the time release melatonin. That was my trick. So it knocks you completely. You take the pill and you're like, there's no way. And
and that's the next morning.
And then every half hour, I think it releases another tab because you wake up and you're like, I think I'm out.
I think I'm done.
Just like hitting you on the head with a brick. It's wonderful. And you wake up and you don't know where the fuck you are. I woke up this morning and I'm like genuinely down 40 or 50 points in IQ, and I don't have that much to spare. Yeah. But it was a hell of a trip because Villa d'Este is amazing.
Yeah.
Even in the rain.
I've not been, actually.
Okay.
It's been on my list, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
You need to prioritize it. And I hate to tell you what you need to do, but you fucking need to do this.
Car shows, walking around, it's... Yes, you want to see them in motion, which you get there. You
get to do a couple times. Okay, so let's talk about... I think this is a great episode, given that I was just there, so we can talk about the show. But I want to talk about why these concours are actually important for people who don't necessarily love the cars that are in them, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, I see it this way. There are three big car shows. In the US, there is Pebble Beach and the Emilia, previously known as Emilia Island Concours d'Elegance, and in Europe, Villa d'Este. You look very upset.
There's a lot of, sure. Villa d'Este for sure and Pebble Beach for sure. I don't know if Emilia is quite on that level, but those are probably the two most important ones in the world.
Okay. So I Yeah, Amelia is nice, and what I liked about Amelia is it all happens at one hotel, and there's one event, and that's it. And until the Radwood guys,
and the auctions,
and the auctions ruined it all. But it's self-contained. Let's start by talking about Monterey Car Week for a second, because it is. I know we've said this before on the podcast. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's truly overwhelming.
It's too much.
My favorite thing about it, though, is that because of the spread of all the events and everything, if you just start driving around, you just see all this stuff on the road that you would never see being operated. And someone's like filled it with luggage and it's covered in dust because someone parked it in a trailer or in a parking lot that was formerly for horse trailers.
Right. Hey.
And so it's covered in dust. And you're just like, it's so cool to see these cars.
A
getting
288
used.
GTO covered in dirt, sitting in a parking lot.
Yeah, and then people just park them there and walk away, just like it's a regular old car.
The thing that I love about Monterey Car Week is I never even think about parking. Like, my normal routine, my old cars don't get parked on the street, don't get parked in parking lots. I don't want door dings. I don't want, like, just a little fender bender will total half of these cars. I don't think about it at Monterey Car Week because things happen. You see a whole bunch of cars getting smacked around, but you kind of don't have to worry about the inattentive boob in the SUV smacking into your car because the car next to you is a 250 Testarossa and they're worth a lot more than your cars. So what I love about Monterey is you have a whole week of activities, and every day there are 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 different things you could be doing, and everyone is going from one event to the other. So just driving on the streets is the most amazing car show you've ever seen.
Yes.
The parking lot, what the hell's that shitty restaurant that's next to Concord of Lemons that we went to last year? Is it
the Black Bear Diner?
Yeah. Like the parking lot at the Black Bear Shit and Diner is the most amazing car show you've ever seen.
Yeah.
By the time the actual concours happens, so all the events kick off now on Tuesday-ish. It's like Tuesday evening, every day there's different car shows. There's Concorso Italiano, which is all the Italian cars. Then there's Legends of the Autobahn, which is the German stuff without Porsche, because Porsche has its own works. What are some
historic
of the
racing
historic
events?
Racing. There's the Little Car Show, which is all small cars.
Mm-hmm. There's the one in Pacific Grove, the kickoff event. There used to be the Tuesday one that's gone now.
Concours on the Avenue.
Yeah.
There were tons of car shows. And then, of course, at the racetrack, it's literal nonstop action all day. By the time Sunday comes around for the actual Concours d'Elegance, I don't care about anything anymore. I don't want to see a human being. I certainly don't want to see more cars. And I want to go home. But I always stay and I always have a great time. It's amazing. But it's 250 cars. Give or take another 100, probably. I don't know. I mean, I looked it up, and it's fewer cars than you think because it looks like 400 cars on a flat field. It's beautiful, right? But it's a golf course with the water behind it, and it's stunning. But there's so many cars that it becomes a parking lot, and you can't see all of them. You can't pay attention to all of them. Unlike you, I haven't driven all these cars and wasn't there when they were created in the 1800s. So it's just so overwhelming that it just becomes full overload.
Yeah.
And then
meaningless, and they're no longer special.
And then there are 10,000 people and they're fucking kids there.
Yes.
And so it's pandemonium, chaos, and not in a good way. The best part about the Concours d'Elegance is getting up for Dawn Patrol, which is something sort of Hagerty sort of half invented, or at least capitalized on. People get up at 5 in the morning.
They formalized it.
They formalized it. You get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you get to watch the cars drive onto the show field.
Yeah.
So now you get to hear them run. There used to be the tour, where there still is, but the tour used to go up a big hill, and you get to hear these cars screaming up the hill and trying to stop at the bottom of the hill and hitting each other and backing down the hill because they couldn't make it up and the clutch failed. There was all kinds of drama. They reduced this to like a parade lap of flat roads last year. So,
yeah.
So the Concours itself is like the low light. That's my least favorite part of Monterey Car Week. Villa d'Este is the hold on. And then a couple years ago, I decided I was going to boycott everything and kill everyone and move on with my life because there was a Kia tent. So what had previously been Spiker, all these car companies have displays all over. They're everywhere. And I drove in and I saw a Kia, the power to surprise, with a bunch of Optimas and other shit on the lawn. And I was really pissed off. And it's not that I'm classist and elitist and okay, it's not that I'm that classist or that at least I'm white trash. It's fine. Know your fucking audience, folks. Like Pebble Beach is a billionaire's car show. Everyone spends $1 million to prepare the cars there. And those cars are the finest automobiles on the planet, presented in the finest way possible at one of the most beautiful places in the world. No one there showed up in their own Kia. And none of the owners of those cars or the people who come to see them are buying Kias. I love Kias, especially now. Back then, certainly not. It was not appropriate. Rolls-Royce had a house. Bentley had a house. Aston Martin had a house. Ferrari had a house. That was bad enough. Casa. And that was bad enough. It was a little bit too commercial. But when Kia showed up, I'm like, everyone has sold out. This is too much. So you're bombarded with marketing from every company. The second step after Ferrari and everyone was the sort of pseudo made up luxury brands like Lexus and Acura and Infiniti had tents. I'm sorry, they were plucked out of, a marketing book. And they don't have heritage. And this is a whole week about heritage. I'm sorry. Lexus now is starting to have heritage. It's been around since 1986, but 10 years ago, it was a fucking 15-year-old made up car brand by Toyota. And so I had a problem with this commercialness of it all. Press releases, press trips for media,
new model launches occurring there. Sure.
It was just, it lost the sense of what the show is about, which is celebrating genuinely rare, special old cars. Not necessarily expensive, although annoyingly, most of the cars are expensive. And even more annoyingly, most of the people there are rich. So there's that. But it just became too commercial. Villa d'Este has not seemed to suffer from any of that shit, which is really good. So BMW Classic bought it or runs it or sponsors it, whatever. It's very heavily done by BMW Classic, but you're not bombarded with BMW stuff. There was a display of all the M cars, all the the lineup of M2, M4, M5, and then two other ones. Oh, there was an M3 Touring there on their lineup.
Oh yeah, I saw one on the street in when I was there. Just being used.
I mean, it's the size of a house, but it's and it's got the buck teeth, but it's a fucking wagon.
Yeah.
So the way the whole process goes is that on Thursday, which I missed due to flights, there's a tour and people get in these old cars, and they drove to Monza and drove around the racetrack, which is pretty fucking cool. I missed it, which is pretty not cool. And
presumably with police escort, knowing what I know about Italians.
Yes, it was a police escort, and they did not drive very quickly, whatever. And the weather was beautiful. Friday was tech day. Saturday is the actual Concorso. And then on Sunday, the concourse happens again, and it's open to the public. And that's the most important part. First of all, there are 48 cars or 50 cars, something like that. 50-ish cars versus, I think Amelia is 250, and I think Pebble's actually more like 400. So you have a manageable amount of cars that you can spend a reasonable amount of time with. Anything you're curious about, you can spend time with. I got a copy of the program in advance. I was there with BMW Classic. I got it, so I read the whole thing on the plane, and so I knew, for example, that the Ford GT was, for example, the only car that's ever won two Le Mans races ever in the history of the world. You, of course, knew the car. You're like, I know that serial number. Boop, 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 boop. And so every one of the cars was deeply, truly special, and you got to spend time with it. And then Saturday, because tickets are like some fucking outrageous amount, like 3,500 euro or some I don't know what they were. I was there to cover the event, so I was there with a peasant pass. But
you mean press?
Yeah. But there were maybe a couple hundred people, and Villa d'Este is unbelievable. The grounds are just absolutely gorgeous, but it's not a big field.
Yeah.
It's little vignettes, and the way it was organized, very much like the way that what Art Cervantes does for Radwood, which is genius when he gets a location like that. You have different classes that are organized in different ways. And so you'll have a class of 3 cars, and they're off on a little pavilion by themselves. And those are those 3. And then the racing cars are on another little pavilion. They're arranged in a circle. And then the pre-war stuff. I mean, it's just sort of very much curated.
It's curated to be consumable.
Yeah. And so you can walk around in 45 minutes and have seen all the cars. And then I spent the day going back and just talking to the owners, because there are so few people there that I walked over to Alois Roof and hung out with him and his wife and his daughter, and they're super cool. And he told me the whole story of his car that was there, which is possibly the oldest 911 in existence, even though it's actually a 901. And he's owned it since 1968. Really?
What color was it?
Blue. It was one of the show cars, the original show cars. And they didn't know this. His dad bought him the car when he was 18. in 1968, had no motor in it, and he put a 4-cylinder in it because he didn't want his kid to kill himself. You don't want an 18-year-old to kill himself in a Porsche. So we put a 4-cylinder in and said, here, have at it. And it was off the road for many years, without further explanation from Mr. Roof. And I'm like, holy shit, it survived an 18-year-old. He's like, well,
It was off the road for some time while we were looking for all of the pieces.
Right, exactly. But this is something you can't do at Pebble, because Pebble, every car is surrounded by 50 people. You can barely even see them. There's just kids and noise and craziness everywhere. But that, I would be upset if Saturday happened and only the people who could afford a 3,500 euro ticket and who got in on time before the cutoff got a ticket. Sunday, all of the cars moved to Villa Erba, which is a villa basically one town down south on the lake, which has vast open fields. All the cars move there, and that's open to the public. So if you really want to spend time with the cars and the owners and really look at them and watch the judges inspect the cars and stuff like that, you can. And then everyone gets to come and see the cars and mob them. But because the fields were so big and there was so much room, there was not this sense of claustrophobia that Pebble gets you. There was no tent for any other car manufacturer, and BMW certainly didn't have one either. It's just there to celebrate the old cars. There's concessions. There was a burger place that had a cacio e pepper burger, which of course I ate. It was amazing. Cacio e pepper is Romano and pepper
and pasta water.
Yeah, but this was they made like a cacio e pepper sauce, and think about it as cheeseburger with Romano on it. It was fucking delicious. But that was it. No commercial anything. And then they had a bunch of displays of old BMWs off to the side. Of course, it is BMW's event. And they had the touring concept that was on the lawn. That was
the Z4 or whatever.
It's Z4. It's BMW Concept Coupe Touring or something.
What is it from the A-pillar forward?
Oh, it's 100% Z4. Yeah. It's a Z4.
It's a new clown shoe.
Yeah.
But not as dorky looking. I think it's more beautiful.
Look, so I got a lot of shit from comments, from commenters saying, "Oh, you're totally wrong. It's a proportional disaster." It's not. It does look. It's dorky, right? It's supposed to be dorky. Z3 coupe,
but it's not as dorky as a Z3.
No, or even the Z4, the first, the Z4. It is a spectacularly gorgeous, elegant, long, low, wide shooting brake that will be on a lawn at a Concours in 50 years. No question about it. It's that beautiful.
Do you think they will make more than one?
I thought so because it looks so production ready, but I was told not. This was not a production intent. This was Adrian van Hooydonk did a sketch. They built one, and here it is. And I don't think they realized that it was going to blow up the internet. And I think that's a perfect illustration of how lost BMW is.
I was just going to say that, exactly. That they do this one sort of thing that happened upon brilliance for once from BMW recently, and then they're like, oh, yeah, no, we can't do that.
So
we can't sell that.
More offensively, actually, what I heard is that they're considering doing a very small production run of like 50 cars at a $200,000 to $250,000 price point, to which I say, stop it. You are not fucking Bentley. You are not Lamborghini. You are not a low volume automaker. You're trying to make minivans and everything for everyone, effectively, these SUVs. For everyone else, know who you are, but asking BMW to know who and what it is and what it's good at is just the biggest joke in the world. The fact that they were like, oh, now we'll be an exclusive coach builder. We'll just build 50 of these for $250,000. Fuck you. You're BMW, peasant. I was at a Concours. I can talk like that now.
So, yes, they should put it in production, do what they did with the Z3 Coupe.
The problem is they didn't plan it to begin with. And so they have no engineering behind that car. It's just a one-off. And if they were to do it, they would have to start from scratch right now. And we're probably nearing the end of the Z4's run.
Yeah. So if anything, like maybe they'll take it as a lesson for the subsequent generation if they even decide they want to continue to make cars the way that Ford did, which is like, oh, and we're only going to make SUVs from now on. I mean, I would not put it past BMW and all of their infinite idiocy these days to do the same thing that Ford did, which is say, we're going to discontinue all cars and only make SUVs.
So I was just told 65% of BMW sold in North America are SUVs, but they're production constrained, so it would be higher. So it's both. It's first of all, it's sad, right? I mean, look, we don't love SUVs anyway, but if that's what the buying market wants, I guess
it would be foolhardy not to follow. But is that what the buying public? Yeah, I guess it is.
It's what they say they want. It's
people are brainwashed. We talked about this on the Range Rover episode about why the public is sort of brainwashed into wanting this.
Yeah, first of all, there are a huge number of economic reasons why SUVs make more sense, and they all come down to legislation and what we prioritize on the government level.
But the coup really is that there's a desirability delta. There's still regular citizens out there who are like, I'm going to treat myself and do something adventurous and get an SUV instead of a car in the future. Like that mentality.
Does that exist anymore?
I think so, yeah. I mean, among old people, yeah, sure. People who've driven cars their whole life, they're like, I'm an adventurer. I got an SUV because I have an adventurous lifestyle.
No, I think it's more like I'm old and the age point is higher and I can slide my old ass directly onto the seat rather than sitting down in. I hate to say it, but there are benefits to having an SUV. I mean, a higher ride height means it affords better visibility. You're further from the road surface, so the visual speed is reduced. Your visibility is better. There's a bunch of reasons why people like them. And of course, they're wagons. Everyone says they hate wagons, but they're like, oh, my hatchback is so usable.
Yep, all that's true. So what were some of the specific vehicle highlights from, do we want to talk about that? Or is that too inane?
No.
From Villa d'Este?
But I think that's actually, I'm glad you asked that because this show wasn't just about pre-war brass, Mercedes 540K special roadsters, which are the most amazing thing in the world, but they don't mean anything to you and me. Apparently last year, okay, they don't. I'm going to look directly at camera. So Paolo, please cut to that camera. And something like a Mercedes 540K special roadster doesn't appeal to me or you. It does appeal to him because he was there. He had one when he was in his 30s.
Yes, back when you could afford them. I miss those days.
Apparently, like last year, they had a 90s supercar class. I really loved the mix of cars. There were certainly really early stuff. I mean, there's nothing like tuck, 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 steam-powered shit. But so I sort of gloss over the 20s and 30s stuff because they don't mean anything to me. My favorite car there was hold on, I got to remember the name.
Isdera?
I mean, Isdera Spider.
Yeah.
Did you know about this thing?
Yeah, I didn't realize they made one with a 4-cylinder. Most of the ones that you see that look like that have M117s in them. The Imperator 108i, if I remember correctly. And that one...
Wasn't a 112i? Because they do
112i was the Commendatore.
Oh, okay.
Which is the one that they made one, but actually two of. There's a white one and a silver one. And the silver one is in the US now. That one has a 928 gearbox and headlights... transaxle, dogleg, and then a M120 V12, the 6-liter V12 from Mercedes.
Holy shit.
That's what's in the Commendatore.
Oh.
But that was their follow-up to the 108i, which was the one that had the M117 V8 in it. So
according to the book for the judges that I read, they originally had GTI motors in them, and I didn't.
So yeah, this must be before this part. The 4-cylinder part I had actually never looked at or knew. So
I couldn't find anything on Wikipedia, which we all know is the be-all and end-all of information. But apparently they started out with a GTI motor. This one was a 2.316, so Cosworth 190E 2.316 engine, mounted in the middle. Longitudinally, and the guy never opened the hood, so who knows what the hell was in it. But he said there was an Evo motor in there, like a 2.316.
I thought I saw a picture of the valve cover somewhere. Maybe on someone's coverage someplace on the internet, I saw the valve cover.
Okay, because it says Mercedes-Benz in what looks like the same font and design as what is on the valve cover of the motor, but that's just a placard that's on the thing.
Cover.
Here's the thing. I was standing there interviewing Helmut Case, who's the head of BMW Classic. Super nice guy, actually... Normally German executives are a little bit stiff. And he had a good sense of humor or whatever. And I heard the thing start and I'm like, it's a Cosworth. I immediately recognized the 2.316 sound, but it wasn't. And this thing is just batshit looking.
Yeah.
So apparently it's 175 horsepower, or 180 PS or something. So it's reduced from the output of the 2.3.
Maybe it has a catalytic converter. Because the catalytic converter ones...
This one didn't sound like it had a cat. It was pretty spicy.
I mean, all these numbers are just... literally numbers on a piece of paper.
True. Who knows? But either way, dogleg, rear drive, mid-engine. I don't know if there's such going doors or what. I don't know what the hell to call them.
Yeah, they're hinged at the front edge because it has no roof, but they're hinged on the monocoque and up. They're scissor doors, effectively.
I guess they're scissors, yeah. More than anything else.
They're scissor doors, effectively.
And no roof. Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing is just wild to look at. I love the huge Mercedes quote unquote grill, and there's like an air intake with a big Mercedes symbol in the back. Taillights,
and the taillights are from like a 107 or something like that.
126. I don't know. They're Mercedes. I mean, it's just
obviously Mercedes,
right? The wheels are 16s. I think the wheels are 16, so they're probably, they can't be 129 wheels. It predated 129. I guess 126 wheels, whatever it is. It's just clearly a Mercedes, except for everything on the inside, except for the body.
And probably the gauges are Mercedes too.
No, the tack
a lot of time
Porsche.
those cars have Mercedes gauges.
Interestingly, the tachometer, it was like a central mounted tack, and all the other gauges were off to the right. I have a picture of it that I'll put an insert in. But it looked like a 911 tack, including the little like red stripe that's at from 64 to 6600, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what the hell Cosworth motor was only revving to 60. Maybe it was a cat car. Maybe that's why. Hold on, you're right, because they were 164 horsepower, which would be 170 PS.
Mystery solved in real time.
Okay. And they only rev to 6,500. So ta-da. But yeah, not a Mercedes, anything else in the interior.
And the whole thing has a sort of like an 80s-ification of a 1950s Mercedes race car. It's a sort of silver low-slung thing with no roof. It looks like if you had basically taken a 300 SLR from the 50s and reinterpreted it using 80s languages.
It also almost looks C111-ish.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure, like, aesthetically. I mean, of course, there was, for a long time, rumors when the C111 and C112 came out about, like, is this going to be a production car? This would be so freaking cool. And so I think at some point, Isdera's like, would you guys just fucking stop with these concept cars that you're not going to put in production? Fucking, we'll do it. Mm-hmm. And I think that was probably part of the underlying like inspiration.
I think the guy behind Isdera worked on the Mercedes concepts, if I remember correctly. He also worked at Porsche Design for a while. Do you know where the name Isdera came from?
No.
What is it called when you take a bunch of words and you take the first letter of each one and you make a...
Oh, not an anagram,
Australopithecus?
Nope. God, we know this word when we're not being recorded, but of course it's...
this is really annoying. I need coffee. I need more coffee. Anyway, it is a thing, a word that consists... It was Ingénieur Bureau, engineering office for design, development, and sport or racing or something, Isdera, or whatever. Oh, now I got to look this up. Which I always hate pulling up my phone to do this stuff. Wiki is ISDERA. It was Ingénieur Bureau, so engineering office for styling, design und Racing. ISDERA. Racing.
That's not how you say that in German.
Ingénieur Bureau for styling, design und Racing. Yeah. This is what you want me to do.
It should be Rennen.
Rennen, yeah. Or maybe that's what it is. Styling, design und Rennen. Entweder oder, doesn't matter, either way. So it's like Isdera, such a great sounding name, but of course it's German, so it's like an Excel spreadsheet.
Yes.
Cough that out one day. That car was fucking tacular. I would own that thing just because it was just so neat. I'm trying to think what else was in that class. Oh my God, that Citroën.
There was an SM concept car.
Yes. It's called Espace. It was the 19...
Was it built by Chaperon or was it built by someone else?
It was built by someone who did this once. I don't remember it was Chaperon. All I know is it was a show car at 1970 or 71 or like 90 something. I don't know what year it was. It was at some point it was a show car somewhere. But it's a T-top, but they, rather than just removable T-tops, they're electrically adjustable and they're, what are those things called? Like, they're Lamellen in German. I don't know. Things that like blinds where they fold on top of each other.
Venetian blinds.
Yeah, but this is not Venice. It was French.
But you were in Italy, but not in Venice.
But not in Venice. So Milanese blinds. The whole thing is just spectacular looking. And that interior, the poor guy, the owner was pretty pissed on Sunday when I talked to him. He's like, I hope I didn't ruin this interior, because the interior is this crazy green furry cloth stuff, including on the steering wheel, and it got soaked because it rained all day on Saturday. And so while the judges were looking at the car, first of all, the car's not waterproof. He told everyone that, so he had it covered at any time when it was pouring. But the interior got soaked. He had to open it all up, but it all worked. It was really cool.
That's very neat.
Yeah, that car, that interior,
as if an SM wasn't psychedelic enough already.
Yeah, T-topped
with a fuzzy interior.
I love the Espace though, and the only time I didn't know that car existed. That was in a class. There was a third car in its class. I don't remember.
These are like sort of esoteric, weird concepts, basically.
Yeah. This was a category of cars that were unusual convertibles. It was like an open air, a different way. Of course, the ones that were really the most interesting, I think, to most people were the racing cars.
Sure.
So
because they had really killer examples of like.
Well, fuck that. They had the best sounds. I mean, I made a whole series of reels that I'm shitting out slowly as time allows of the noises these things made. Oh my God. All right. So Ford GT, this car won Le Mans twice. You know, there's some story behind it, right? You knew
Probably.
the whole Jackie X story.
Oh no, that's the Porsche one.
That's the Porsche one. This one was somebody ran it. I don't know, whatever the fuck happened. Whatever. Something happened. It was amazing. I'm too jet lagged to know or to remember. But the sound that thing made when it started up was, I mean,
it does not sound like a Cobra or a 427 normally. It doesn't have that American sort of burble. Because of the design of the headers, they end up sounding almost like crossplanes.
yeah,
It's a very unique noise.
it was violent. Violent. I mean, you know, you just hear, you know, it died at one point and then didn't want to restart. Probably just flooded from. These cars are not meant to sit and idle, and these cars are moved around. There's another thing I like about Villadesta. They're moved around a lot, so they're driving themselves to different places all the time, and so they're all fouling plugs and they're pissed off and miserable.
Yeah, these poor race cars.
But you know, the best part about that is when they do start, you got to clear their throats, and so you get some big revs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like being in Cars and Coffee, but instead of the Mustangs and Dodge Chargers doing it, it's fucking Ford GT40s.
Yes.
So it died at one point, and I have the video of it restarting. And it's, you know, boom, and everyone just jumps when the thing fucking starts.
Yes.
It blew out the mic on the iPhone. I've never heard anything actually blow the mic out. Total distortion, just absolute. My ears rang for 2 days after that. There was a Ferrari 512 BBLM.
Yes. Right. When they ran those cars at Le Mans.
Oh my God, the fucking sound. That was another, that guy started that car at Tech. And so you're in at the Tech on Friday, you're in this little courtyard. It's very small, very narrow where the stage is. Maybe, I don't know, 40 feet wide or something. And there's a stage and the guy pulls the thing on the stage and I missed when they pulled it up. And then I'm looking like, that's a bizarre looking front end. Apparently there's only one of them with that front end on it. Not particularly beautiful. It's got this red livery with little bubbles all over it and whatever. And he started it and the world stopped. I mean, it was so cool to see everyone was just kind of hanging out doing their things, walking around. And when that thing started, everyone stopped moving. It was just,
yeah.
what the fuck is that? And that was another one where the owner or driver or minder, whoever was moving around, was not afraid of judicious use of revs and blips and throttle. And so it's fucking, the iPhone captured none of that magic. So it was this deep bass insanity. It's flat 12. Well, technically 180 degree V12 with, if you've ever been to Formula One race with the old naturally aspirated V10s and V8s, how the cameras on TV, you always used to pick up the, but missed out this bellowing bass. Just, that was the craziest thing when I saw those cars. This was the opposite. So the camera, the iPhone picked up this, but missed the that was on top of it. So it was this multi-layered audio sound. Oh my fucking God. Don't care about this car's provenance. Don't care about its racing history. I just want to hear it rev. And the motherfucker started it when he came up to the main stage to win his class award or whatever he got. He starts it when Simon Kidston's like, right in the middle of a very well-spoken sentence sounding really fat. And he just stops and the thing revs and he moves out. And once he's out of frame on my iPhone, you hear him just smacking the rev limiter. It was nuts. like echoed, it literally echoed throughout the whole lake. You heard it come back. Spectacular.
Yep, that's why we like old cars, because a modern car will never do that. Even even it puts a McLaren F1 to shame.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I don't know how the fuck that thing sounded that good.
Yeah.
There was the joke was David McNeil was there. It is the guy who owns WeatherTech. He was there. I'm pretty sure it was with his 250 GTO silver. Like the car is just gorgeous. And at one point he goes to start it to move it in to go on the little parade thing to get up on stage. And I have a recording of it. You barely hear it.
Yeah.
You're just hearing.
But in most contexts, it sounds pretty spicy.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing was that he pulled up to the tent he was pulling up to be interviewed, and he gave it a good, big, huge rev, and holy shit, the induction noise. Mm-hmm. But the exhaust was super quiet. Mm-hmm. Which contrasted tremendously to the 250 Testarossa that was there. Which is the same motor, right? But that's got the induction pipes that stick up through the hood. But that was all exhaust noise. That was just friggin' insane.
That's the difference between a sports car and a GT car, because those cars would have been, when they were racing, they weren't exactly contemporaries, but during that period you'd run sports cars, and that's basically what we now consider a prototype, and that's what the Testarossa is running as, and the roofed cars like a TDF, the SWB, and the GTO would be running GT. So they have roofs and luggage space, and they're more civilized.
Even a GTO. So are they that quiet? I was wondering if made it quieter.
It depends on the car. I mean, now, of course, everybody has altered them for various purposes over the years and in search of power and whatever. But originally, like, that's more consistent with the spirit of the, GT. Like, I've driven a number of SWBs, which is the predecessor of the GTO, and they're all different. It just depends on how that particular car is set up. And they did make street versions of the SWB too, so those ones will be quieter. And if it's been restored for someone who intends to use it, now people use them for like a multi-day event like the Tour Auto. Yeah. You are not going to want it to be that fully
that's
uncorked.
Why Jesus made earplugs.
Yeah.
No,
we got one in once that had earplugs in the door pocket, and I was like, wonder what these are for. I mean, I kind of knew, and then I started it up, and I was like, fuck. Yeah. Like no carpets or anything. The thing was just really raucous.
No, it was really cool. I loved the mix of cars. I loved the fact that the event is so small. It rained the whole time, basically. The Sunday when everyone
At least it wasn't as much as in Emilia Romagna.
Oh, well, yeah. That wasn't that far away.
I know.
8 people died from, that was the last I saw, it was from flooding. I mean, there was torrential rain.
Yeah.
On the last day that I was there on Sunday, almost all the cars were still at Villa Erba for the event, and the sun came out. And I just was like, oh, that's what they mean when they're like, this is the most beautiful place in the world. Holy shit.
Was this your first time at Lake Como?
Yeah. I've never been there before.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows about it. That's my least favorite thing. It's globally known. There are other lakes which I shall not name because I do not want other people to find out about them I prefer because they're less crowded.
Yeah. The thing is, what was missing from the whole weekend was the parking lot scenes, right?
Yeah.
So because Monterey Car Week is so spread out and there are so many different events, everyone brings their old car and drives it around. There were certainly cool old cars there, but I probably took 5 pictures of street parked cars, if even that. And they weren't even street parked. It was sort of on the villa grounds. There was for example, a GR Yaris that I took a picture of.
Cool.
There was a 2002 converted to electricity, a 2002 TE, as it was badged, which we'd never know from looking at it.
Done by BMW or?
It's a company called Icons with an E. The owner of the company was super cool. came right over and just was like, hey, let me show you this. What do you want to do with it? I'm like, yeah, ship it over to the US and I would love to do something with it. It's done together with BMW Classic. So Classic does the physical restoration and all the bodywork and everything else. And then they do their electric conversion. And I'm pretty sure it was a Tesla Model 3 rear motor in it. With BMW i3 electronics, with BMW i3 battery, and then Bosch and Siemens electronics. Spectacularly well integrated. From the outside, you cannot see, other than the little badge, which was done really well, and the lack of exhaust pipe. There's nothing telling you that it's electric.
Is this for all those people who live in Europe who can't drive anything in the city and they sort of chase you out of the city center if you're driving something that's not electric?
I don't know. He did say that most of their clients were people who are big collectors who had kids who don't drive stick, which I call child abuse. I mean, if you're a car collector and your kids can't drive a stick, you have failed as a parent.
That's true. That's true. No, that's initially controversial, but actually on a closer examination, not.
I mean,
I agree.
It's just kind of sad. Like, your kids can't drive stick. Come on, that's not cool. And especially if you're a car, like you're a major car collector. And I assume people who are buying these cars are major car collectors.
Well, how much do they cost?
170 grand, which is a lot of money. So 170,000 euros.
That's a lot for 2002.
But the one that was there was, I think, 34,000 kilometers. Original paint.
Oh, they cut up a car like that?
I believe it was an automatic. One of them that they did was an automatic, but it was they will not cut it up a TII. They won't cut up any special cars, but it's done so. Look, I have mixed feelings on this because my idea is cars that don't exist for their engine can be converted to electricity, and I'm not going to bother you, right? Something
I agree
like
with
a Citroen DS
yes.
is a perfect candidate for an electric conversion.
I agree with that because it's such an uninspiring part of the experience.
Rover, perfect. Like a Defender, perfect for electric because the engine's terrible, right?
Yeah.
A 2002, that engine is not.
The M10, is
M10,
that?
yeah. It's not a masterpiece.
No.
And so that's sort of in
agree.
the gray area, right? I think, a TII, they're spicy enough. You can really make them rev, make power. They can sound good. But a base 2002 or 1602 or whatever, I just don't.
Yeah. I agree with that.
So I'm on the fence.
It's criminal to do it to certain cars.
Like a DeLorean is a perfect another electric conversion, right?
Because the PRV is a boat anchor, but less useful.
Fair enough, yeah. But I thought that was really neat. Mm-hmm. But there's not.
I mean, there's this ongoing battle about how do these cars continue to cross the chasm and become relevant. Weird.
Oh yeah, that's what I was starting to say. Is that this guy was saying a lot of we're not used to this in the U.S., but in Europe it is. It is a problem to drive an old gas-powered car. Whereas 10 years ago, you drive an old Ferrari or drive something, everyone was celebrating you, and that's the way it is here, right? We see a 60s Mustang bellowing smoke and. It's fun. It's cool. Look at that. Apparently that's just not okay anymore anywhere in Europe. And so they're increasingly battling against that. So how do you keep the classic car experience, but get allowed into city centers, number one, or not piss people off? And that's...
Yeah, the American way is like, fuck them, they're not me.
But I mean, look, here's the thing. I'm not commuting in any of my old cars, right? I'm not putting gratuitous miles to go to the grocery store. I'm doing that in an electric vehicle. Fuck off and leave me alone when I want to start my uncatalyzed Ferrari. Right, that's just my selfishness. And it's the people who are driving 50, 60,000 miles a year in their Prius who think they're doing better for the environment. Shut up, buy an electric car. Leave more gas for me to burn. Yes. And get 10 miles per gallon. But I really think there will be a mix of different kinds of fuels going forward. There's a place for hydrogen fuel cell. That Hyundai Concept N74 was there.
Oh, the 80s looking one?
Which is hilarious because it was a 1974 Pony Concept, which is Giugiaro, which of course is a Scirocco, which is also the
ace of spades.
He did one friggin' car
shape, and then he used it for 15 or 20 years.
It's Isuzu Piazza, Mark II Scirocco. It's Hyundai Pony. It's everybody.
And they are putting it in production, I heard. Did I see that somewhere?
So they're doing something. So the N74 Concept, by the way, the thing is huge in person.
Oh, really?
It's
I imagine
enormous.
It would be the size of like a Hachiroku or
no, it's
Piazza.
That's a hydrogen fuel cell powered EV. Then while we were there, and I didn't get to see it, unfortunately, they unveiled the Hyundai Pony Coupe Concept, which they lost. The original concept done by Giugiaro for Hyundai in 1974, that this N74 Vision thing is based on visually, was lost somewhere. It went away. So they worked together with Giugiaro to recreate the original Pony Coupe in its original size and everything. So apparently it's tiny, like a Mark I Volkswagen, like all the cars were at that point. And that's what they debuted. I did not get to see it in person. But the idea is that they will be now doing some sort of production car based on those looks of one or both or whatever. I mean, I'm all for it. As I told the designer of the car, I look at that N74 and my eyes turn to little hearts and the little yellow emoji thing because I'm looking at my Scirocco, right? It's that same shape that I just have been looking at for so many years and I love.
Right, and it's such a stark departure from everything else that everyone else is doing. You know, there's so many unfortunate looking, unpleasant cars. I mean, you look at what I think Honda is doing a great job with this. I mean, the Ioniq 5, for example, although the EV6,
which is
I think,
a Giugiaro ripoff. I mean, that is a ripoff, not a ripoff.
It is heavily influenced by the aesthetics of
the
Delta
original
Integrale.
Hyundai Pony, right? Hyundai Pony, which was done by Giugiaro. So they're ripping off their own history at this point, which is totally fine. So ripping off is not fair. But here's the thing. Hyundai's having fun. I met Luke Donkervolka, by the way, who's Hyundai's design chief. He watches the show, which I was shocked.
This show?
Right, thank you. He came over to me and was like, Jason, I don't know. I know his work, obviously. All of you know his work.
Yeah, I mean, he, for example, did the Murcielago.
He did everything.
And everything else that came out of Lamborghini during that period, like the Gallardo.
He's incredibly talented designer. And he walks over and he's like, hi, Jason, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, hey, I was listening to the podcast on the 9/11 douchebag episode. He didn't use it, whatever. He was like the 9/11 Weenies episode. And I'm like, oh, and he's like, oh, by the way, I'm Luke Donkervolka. I was like, dead on the ground. And I'm like, oh shit, what did I say? And he laughed. He was great. He was like, actually, I thought you were pretty kind. Because the reality is I put on this front, but I do like 9/11s. I just don't want to admit
spite of themselves, though, not because of themselves.
I like them because they're great. I don't want to tell everyone I like them because they're the obvious choice and that's boring. And I want people to be miserable because misery loves company. But
nobody's listening to you anyway because those cars are there's so much community and so many people who are into those cars now.
Exactly. So it's not
which is the problem.
Fair enough. But anyway, he was saying, I congratulated him on, Hyundai / Genesis design. Like, right. It's just unbelievable what this company's doing. And he's like, look, we're having fun. And I'm like, that's it. If you look at everything in Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis's lineups, like right now, they're having a good time. Yeah. And it's obvious from the outside. BMW is running scared, for example. Like that Coupe Concept touring thing is spectacular, but they're not building it. The stuff that they are building, the M2s and whatever, they are.
And all of the iXs, my God.
The iX? Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about it, you want to talk about the XM? That's what you just drove.
Which is a Citroën.
No,
I know this thing outside is an XM,
okay.
But XM to me, when you say XM, you're like, oh, exciting.
Citroën, cool,
Citroën XM.
wedgy, big 5-door hatchback. Okay, so you just drove that XM.
Yes.
I have that only until tomorrow, so I got to go hurry up and take pictures of it so I can do a Cammisa verdict of it. So let's have a Derek verdict or a Hyphen verdict.
It's just... The problem is I don't interact with modern cars enough to have reference points for what is and isn't good. My only reference points are old cars. And compared to old cars, it's just the user experience and all of the shit in there is so overwhelming and inscrutable. And then, the first thing I noticed, which was just pulling out of the parking lot here, is that the ride quality is quite poor. I was like, this feels like it's on 30-inch wheels. Like, how is this supposed to be a luxury vehicle? It's fast. It makes good noises. It moves in a way that is really impressive for how heavy it is. I mean, it certainly puts a 1990s Range Rover to shame, which it should do. Dynamically. Yes, but ultimately, it's so hideous. I mean, it's just such a visual...
I'm going to say something really shocking.
You like it.
I know. Like is a strong word. In all black, because this car is all black exterior, because there are two tones normally, and it's fucking weird looking. In all black with blacked out lights, blacked everything out. No BMW badges on it,
except for on the window, which looks like a sticker.
I
in a
think
low
it's
rent sort of a way.
I don't even know. Yeah, it doesn't look good. The thing looks sinister as fuck.
Yeah, but sinister is not good.
You know what? People on the road hate you when you drive that car.
How does that manifest?
I got fingers. Okay, I wasn't exactly driving like a nun.
So they hate you. They don't hate the car.
No, but the thing is, you can drive like a dick in like a Prius and no one really says anything. I got honked at by a bunch of people. Granted, I probably scared the shit out of them because that thing does move in ways that it shouldn't. And I went across the entire bridge at one point at 10 miles an hour under the speed limit in a traffic jam. And I could see what was happening was there was in the right lane, it was down to 2 lanes in this direction. There was a tractor trailer in the right lane. And then there was an idiot in, what the hell was he in, a Mustang? Something that shouldn't have been going so slow, pacing him. And they both kept slowing down more and more and more because the truck barely fit in his lane. And the guy in the Mustang was a moron and just was scared and slowing down, but never got out of next to him. So we wound up coming to a stop at some point on the bridge behind him because traffic was backing up. It was this complete clusterfuck. And I got him. I finally passed enough people to get by him. And he was in the left lane doing 41 in a 55 up the hill. And I flew up on him going at least 55. And
at least 55,
maybe 56. This is the episode after I bitch about the guy in the Mustang. But yeah, no, I mean, going very quickly, not 160 miles an hour on the shoulder, but, and I flew up on him, flashing high beams at him. And he just gave me the finger and kept pacing the guy. And he just kept slowing down and I got him. I finally got around him, but he gave me the finger and honked, and 2 other cars gave me the finger and honked when I floored it around him. And then, by the way, that was the best thing. You get around him and there's literally no one for 2 miles in front. But people you see their reactions to that car. It's so big and it's so brash and in your face that it pisses people the fuck off and they just want to brake check you.
I am pissed off by it, just looking at it.
You identified the biggest problem to me, which is the UX. I drive 8 is that the UX, and it's just not usable. You can sort of, if you need to, figure things out, but it's dangerous and it's the amount of time that you have to spend with your eyes off the road. And the biggest fail is the ride quality. And the worst part is you probably didn't drive it long enough to notice this. 22-inch wheels. So they're big, but they're not.
I mean, also with the modern technology, I mean, you drive a GT3 now and it has, I don't know, similar size wheels and rubber band tires, and it rides like a cloud.
This thing, not only do you feel every pavement strip, things that you genuinely, and I don't mean to exaggerate here, but things you don't even feel in other cars are
intrusive.
But every one is like a small baseball bat hit to your face. I mean, and they're accompanied with this booming like a bass note, boom, 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 boom
through the chassis.
So through the chassis, as you're driving, the car is deafeningly loud inside, deafeningly over tar strips and stuff.
Not like a Range Rover.
And I just kept, that's what I kept thinking. Why would I spend $170,000 on something? Yeah, it's that expensive. No, it is 600-ish horsepower, whatever. Who cares? And the interior smells delightful. It smells so good.
My C43 interior smells better, and I paid like $13,000 for that.
So for only another $150,000, you too.
Wait, that thing is $170,000?
Yeah.
If you asked me how much it should cost based on my interaction with it, knowing what things cost now and how much that is, I would have been like, I don't know, 105.
They priced it about $50,000 to $60,000 too high. I don't think you're going to sell all that much. Look, visually, the thing is holy shit. It's hard, like it or hate it.
Yes,
it is one hell of an imposing looking statement.
That's not what I want. I want something that I like. I don't want it to be imposing. I want it to be attractive.
I don't want something that's, first of all, it's a hybrid, right? So it's a plug-in hybrid, and it did get 35 miles per gallon overall throughout an entire 50-mile trip. But it did use almost the whole battery doing so, and then got 35 miles per gallon. So I'm sure it's not overall very efficient once that battery's dead. And once you factor in all the electricity, but it's confused. There are times when you're just driving along and you're just kind of genuinely cruising at like 25 miles an hour. And it goes into whatever, when it starts the engine, it goes into whatever gear gets it to between 3,000 and 4,000 RPM. And that engine is not quiet.
No, I mean, I didn't even know what was powering it, but as soon as I got on it, I was like, this sounds like an M5 with the hot V.
Right, with that flat plane crank exhaust note and the cross plane crank mechanical and intake noise. But all of a sudden you're driving along and you're like, what the fuck? Oh shit. It scared me a couple times, like freaked me out. And there are a couple times where we just hold a gear to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 RPM. And I'm looking down and it's D with 1 out of 3 bars. So it's in the least aggressive drive mode. And I'm like, would you please fucking shift? But I don't know what it was doing. If it was trying to charge the battery.
discordant.
There's also, if you try to brake torque it off the line, it does this clunk into. I tried to do a launch, and it clunks into first so violently that my passenger spilled his coffee. We didn't even move. I don't think I've ever seen this before. Literally didn't move, but there was enough of a clunk that his coffee spilled. He was holding it. He was very upset with
Cross.
It's a confused mission, and that's my problem with it. Is it a luxury car? Okay, then if so, then it shan't ride like that and had better not be that loud inside. Is it a sports car? Okay, then it can't be 6,000 pounds, right? And it's got BMW's typical overdone rear active steer where you feel like you're slipping on ice the whole time.
Yeah, it's like being in a shopping cart with four-wheel casters.
You're in an IKEA shopping cart where the back is just fucking all over the place. So yeah, does it go around a corner quickly? Of course. Does it accelerate quickly? Sure. But here you're dealing with 8-speed automatic plus an electric motor plus 2 turbos. I floored it at one point. I got a yellow light and my passenger heard the chink of the gas pedal going down. And I'm like, uh-oh, light turned red. And then the fucking thing exploded through the light. So I very much went through a red light, and the Tesla Model 3 that was right next to me floored it when the light turned yellow. And he was 30 car lengths across the intersection, already slowed back down to 30 miles an hour by the time I blew through the light. I mean, so yeah, it's fast. Yay. I bet you anything, the slowest Model X you could buy would destroy that thing in the real world. So in the fun. So, I hate to keep shitting on BMW, but
stop making shit-onable products.
Well, and then they do this and they make them okay, love it or hate it, that styling is a statement. But that fucking touring coupe fucking, oh my God, is that beautiful.
Yeah.
Restrained and elegant and classic proportions.
I mean, it's really like an FF, but for regular people.
Oh, yeah, until they make 50 of them and charge $250,000, and then it's not.
Then you'd rather have an FF.
For half the money.
Yes.
Yeah, they're cheap, aren't they?
150 gets you a very good FF now.
So you could have a BMW XM or a Ferrari FF and $25,000 left over for repairs.
Which you would immediately use.
Weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the power takeoff unit, transmission failures.
Whatever. Just then you go back to rear drive, which is how it should have been in the first place. I'm sure there's a PTU delete on the car. You just program it in. You are now a rear wheel drive FF.
You just have to drive above. I forget what speed they turn the front wheels off, but at some point above a certain speed, it's rear wheel drive only, and then you just as long as you don't go slower than that, then you have a rear wheel drive FF.
Perfect.
There's your solution.
We have solved the world's problems
and saved you some money. Congratulations. Stay tuned for more important money saving tips from the Carmudgeon Show.
I think we end there. It doesn't get any better than this. Okay. We'll be back next week. This was a special holiday episode of the Carmudgeon Show for Memorial Day. But we didn't want to wait, talking about the Concorso d'Eleganza Villa d'Este.
See you there next year, maybe.
Seriously. Somebody please buy me a ticket. I'll work. I'm not above being a hoe. I'll put out. I'll work. I did. It's great. It's wonderful. I covered the event. And if you want to see more pictures of everything, in all seriousness, I think I made 180 posts, and I knew it was going to be that
stories.
So I did them as stories. And then I put them in highlight reels, one with 100 and whatever. So you
Super.
can go back to my Instagram.
Existing forever
on the Instagrams at Jason Cammisa. Go look at them because it was genuinely the most amazing car show in the world.
All right. We have to go. I have to go.
P.